I'll be talking to you on the most populated countries in the world. Now, the most populous countries in the world have fluctuated throughout history, and even now, the list of countries in the top 10 will likely change over the coming decades as demographics in Europe, America, and China begin to tip in favor of an aging population. And the countries in Africa have increased capacity to support more people. The balance of population will undoubtedly shift. Right. Population growth rates were relatively slow from 10,000 BC onwards and remained steady for centuries. In 500 BC, the population was about 100 million in the whole world, and by the year zero, it had doubled to 200 million. Increase like this continued until around 1750, which saw the dawn of the Industrial Revolution in Europe and the USA. All right, so I'm actually going to be giving you the present statistics of 2023 of which countries are the most populated countries in the world. Right, so I'll range from the 10 right down to the first. Now, number 10 is Mexico. Mexico is the most populated Spanish-speaking nation in the world and in all of Central America. For the first half of the 20th century, population growth was negative, mainly due to the Revolutionary War, but this changed drastically in the 1980s. Approximately a quarter of the population lives in the capital, Mexico City. And now you can see the population in Mexico is about 127 million people. Number 9 is Russia. During the mid-20th century, Russia was a global powerhouse in competition with the US for control of global political landscape. It remains the most populated country in Europe, but it is also one of the least densely populated in the world due to its extensive size. Russia had been seeing population decline for decades until 2010, when rates began to increase due to the lower death rate. The COVID-19 pandemic and war in Ukraine have caused the country to re-enter population decline. And with one of the oldest population in the world, this presents a huge problem for the future prosperity of the country. And you see the population stands at about 144 million people. Number 8 is Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a small country in terms of area compared to its large population. Therefore, it is the most densely populated large country in the world. It has seen its fertility rate drop dramatically in the past 50 years, thanks to increased levels of female education and government birth control campaigns. In contrast to other highly populated countries, Bangladesh mainly resides in rural areas rather than urban conurbations. This is indicative of the level of economic development in Bangladesh, which lags behind its Asian neighbors, and the population stands at 172 million people. Number 7 in our list is Brazil. It has long been the population powerhouse of South America. After a period of rapid growth in the mid-20th century, Brazil's population growth rate has been steadily declining and will enter a negative phase by 2050. The population is heavily clustered on the East Coast megacities, although population sprawl has contributed to encroachment on the Amazon's rainforest. As of now, the population is about 215 million people. Number 6 is Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the most densely populated countries in Africa, with the continent's highest population. 50% of Nigerians live in urban areas, and this is only set to increase as job opportunities continue to be concentrated there. By 2050, Nigeria could become the third most populous country in the world. It recently became the continent's largest economy as well, and the population stands at about 221 million people. Number 5 is Pakistan. Pakistan is said to be one of the top 10 fastest growing countries in the coming decade. It is home to megacities, Karachi and Lahore, with extensive mountainous rural areas contributing to the extremely urban population distribution. Punjab is the most densely populated province and area in Pakistan, and the population stands at about 276 million people. Number 3 is the United States. From 1950 to 2010, the United States of America's population doubled from 151 million to 309 million. The population is spread across very densely populated urban areas, which are clustered along the east and west coasts. California and Texas, the two most populous states, account for about one quarter of the population. During this time, the USA's demographic shifted dramatically following the post-industrial decline of their manufacturing industries, in combination with other factors such as rising middle class. The USA's population growth has slowed rapidly. In fact, without the high levels of immigration, the USA's population will be in decline. And now the population stands at about 339 million people. Number 2 is India. A very high population density exists throughout the country. Apart from the deserts in the northwest and in the mountains in the north, India has been gaining fast on China's population number over the past 20 years and is forecast to overtake them in 2023. This is despite a falling fertility rate and a general shift in attitude among Indians to have smaller families. There is a significant deviation between the north and the south in population growth. In the north, where families are poorer, the fertility rates are still high enough to outweigh the falling population in the richer south. In general, the population density is higher in urban areas like Kolkata, and the population presently stands at about 1 billion people. Population stands at about 1,421,000,000 people. Number 1 is China. China is the most populous country in the world. In 1950, China had a population of around 550 million people, meaning that almost 900 million people have been added to that number in 70 years. China once saw this rising population as a problem, and so they implemented a one-child policy from 1980 to 2015. This legally restricted family to only